You walk into a casino, and you feel like you're walking into someone else's business. The dealers, the chips, the slot machines pulling coins out of your pocket, one blinking light at a time, it all feels like a place built to gamble. And that's exactly what you're supposed to think. Because the truth is, the casino itself never gambles. Not once. Not on a single hand of blackjack, not on a single spin of the wheel. While you're rolling the dice, the house has already won. Because the game was never really about luck. It was about certainty. Here's the belief almost everyone walks in with. A casino makes its money because players lose. That's true, technically, but it's such a small part of the real story that it almost misleads you. If casinos only relied on people losing at cards and slots, most of them would be fragile, unpredictable businesses, swinging between huge nights and terrifying ones. But casinos aren't fragile. They're some of the most mathematically stable businesses on the planet. And the reason is something most people never think about. Casinos don't sell entertainment, and they don't sell risk. They sell time. Every additional minute you spend at a table or in front of a machine is a minute where a small, invisible percentage quietly slides in the casino's favor. That percentage has a name. It's called the house edge, and it's the real engine behind everything you see on the casino floor. Let's break that down because it's simpler than it sounds. On a roulette wheel, the numbers 1 through 36 are split evenly between red and black. If the game were truly 50-50, the casino would break even over time and the whole business model would collapse. So they add a green 0, sometimes 2. That tiny green pocket looks harmless, almost decorative, but it shifts the odds just enough that over thousands of spins, the casino wins about 5.3% of every dollar wagered, without ever touching a card or a chip themselves. They don't need luck. They need volume. And volume is guaranteed as long as people keep playing. This is the first big secret. Casinos aren't in the business of winning bets. They're in the business of building machines that mathematically cannot lose in the long run. Machines that just happen to be disguised as games. Now here's where it gets interesting because the house edge alone doesn't explain why casinos are shaped the way they are. Think about the last time you walked through one. No windows, no clocks, carpets so busy you can't focus on them for too long. It isn't bad design, it's some of the most intentional architecture in the entire hospitality industry. Casino designers studied human psychology for decades to understand one simple truth. The longer someone stays inside, the more statistically certain the casino's profit becomes. So they remove every signal that tells your brain time is passing. Natural light disappears. Clocks disappear. Even the pathways are designed to loop you past more games rather than toward the exit. You're not just walking through a casino. You're walking through a carefully engineered psychological loop. And it doesn't stop at architecture. The sound of slot machines, that constant chime of small wins, isn't random either. Slot machines are built around something psychologists call near misses, moments where the reels almost line up into a jackpot but don't. Your brain doesn't process a near miss the same way it processes a loss. It processes it almost like a win, releasing a small hit of dopamine that makes you want to try again immediately. Multiply that by hundreds of spins an hour, and you start to see why slot machines, not poker tables, not blackjack, generate the largest share of casino revenue in most markets. It isn't the games with the most skill that make the most money. It's the games engineered around the fastest, most addictive feedback loop. But even this isn't the full picture because if you think a casino's entire business model is built on gambling, you're still missing the biggest twist. Walk through any major casino resort today in Las Vegas, Macau, or Singapore, and gambling revenue is often less than half of what actually keeps the lights on. The rest comes from something people rarely associate with casinos at all: real estate and hospitality, hotel rooms, restaurants, nightclubs, retail shopping, concerts, conventions. Some of the biggest casino resorts in the world make more money from a 5-star steakhouse or a luxury handbag store than from an entire floor of slot machines. Why? Because gambling revenue, while massive, is heavily regulated, taxed, and unpredictable in certain markets. Non-gaming revenue isn't. A hotel room at full occupancy is one of the most reliable profit engines in business, almost regardless of what's happening downstairs on the casino floor. This is the real twist behind the industry. People think casinos sell gambling. What they're actually selling is an entire ecosystem designed to keep you inside it for as long as possible, spending money in dozens of small, comfortable ways you don't even register as gambling. The free drinks while you play aren't a generous gesture. They're a calculated cost because a slightly relaxed, slightly distracted player makes slightly worse decisions and stays slightly longer. The luxury suites offered to high rollers aren't hospitality out of kindness. They're targeted investment in a customer segment casinos call whales, players who can lose and are expected to lose more money in a single weekend than most people make in a year. In Macau, some of these high rollers are flown in on private jets, housed in villas, and treated like royalty because a single whale's losses can outweigh an entire section of the casino floor for a month. And this brings us to one of the most important, least talked about parts of casino economics: risk management. You'd think a casino, sitting on a guaranteed mathematical edge, wouldn't need to worry about losing money. But high rollers break that comfortable math. A single VIP betting massive amounts on a single hand introduces short-term volatility that can genuinely hurt a casino's finances if it isn't managed properly. This is why large casinos use something called credit lines and detailed player tracking systems, monitoring behavior, spending patterns, even emotional cues to manage risk the same way a bank manages loans. Every player is quietly being profiled, not to trick them necessarily, but to protect the business from the very volatility that makes gambling entertaining in the first place. There's a darker layer to this too, one the industry doesn't advertise. Casinos rely heavily on a small percentage of their customers who show patterns of problem gambling. Multiple studies from gaming regulators have found that a significant share of total gambling revenue comes from a relatively small group of high-frequency players. This isn't a conspiracy. It's simply the mathematical reality of an addictive product operating inside a legal, regulated industry. Casinos know this, regulators know this, and increasingly so do the players. It's why modern casinos, especially in regulated Western markets, now invest in responsible gambling programs, self-exclusion lists, and spending limits. Not purely out of altruism, but because unregulated addiction eventually invites the kind of government scrutiny that can shut an entire resort down. So if the math guarantees profit and the psychology guarantees engagement, why do some casinos still fail? The answer is almost always the same: overexpansion and debt. Building a modern casino resort costs billions of dollars, and most of that money is borrowed. Atlantic City is the clearest example in modern history. Once considered the East Coast's answer to Vegas, half a dozen major casinos there filed for bankruptcy or closed entirely within a few years of each other. It wasn't because people stopped gambling. It was because too many casinos were built too close together, chasing the same limited pool of visitors while carrying enormous debt from construction costs that never had a realistic path to being paid off. A casino with a guaranteed statistical edge can still lose everything if its interest payments outpace its ability to fill rooms and tables. This is really the final piece of the puzzle. A casino isn't just a game. It's simultaneously a bank, a hotel chain, a psychology lab, and a real estate empire, all operating under one roof, all designed around a single mathematical certainty. Over enough time, the house edge always wins. The games on the floor are almost a distraction from the real business happening around them, in the architecture, in the loyalty programs, in the free drinks, in the hotel suites, in the way every square foot of the building is engineered to keep you comfortable, distracted, and inside just a little bit longer. So the next time you walk past a casino lit up and humming with sound, remember what you're actually looking at. It isn't a building full of risk. It's one of the most carefully calculated businesses ever built. One that turned human psychology, architecture, and mathematics into a guaranteed repeating profit machine and dressed the whole thing up as a game of chance.